Hello everyone, my name is Angel Aubrey and we are now in the economic aspect of the book Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas written by Antonio de Morga. For us to be able to understand the topic well, let's define what is economics. Do you have any idea? Okay, economics is a social science concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. The building blocks of economics are the studies of labor and trade. Since there are many possible applications of human labor and many different ways to acquire resources, it is a task of economics to determine which methods yield the best results. Now that everyone is ready, let's start. Our first stop is in Luzon, Camarines, and neighboring provinces around Manila. They all live in the farm by their manual labor, fisheries, and trading, sailing from one island to another and going from one province to another by land. In the province of Zambales, as a matter of pastime and occupation, the women work with a needle, with which they are proficient, and they engage in all kinds of needlework. They also weave blankets and spin cotton and keep house for their husbands and parents. They pound rice, which is to be cooked for their meals, and prepare the rest of the food. They raise chickens and pigs and do the house chores, while their menfolk engage in the work of fields, fishing, boating, and farming. They drink that which drips out of the tender flowers of the coconut trees, and of the nipa palms, which are abundant and which are raised like vineyard grapes, although with less care and difficulty. Upon taking the tuba juice from the palms, they distill the same in their containers, stoves, and other utensils, and when it is fermented, it becomes strong or light liquor, which is drunk throughout the islands. It becomes a clear fluid like water, but very strong and dry. When used moderately, it is medicinal for the stomach and good for plums and other kinds of ryams. When mixed with Spanish wine, it becomes a pleasant liquor which is tasteful and wholesome. By the way, it is called tuba juice or sap of the palm tree from the Tagalog. It must be admitted that the Filipino people have improved in this regard, thanks perhaps to the wine monopoly. In other provinces, their vessels and craft are of many types. In the rivers and streams, they use one mast large canoes or bangkas made of boards attached to the keels. There are also viceroy type and the barangay craft, which are straight and light craft with low body held together with wooden tresnails, as strong in the prow as in the stern, accommodating many rowers on both sides, which craft likewise have paddles used outside of the craft by expert paddlers who propel the same in unison. The land is covered with shadows everywhere, from trees of various kinds and fruit-bearing ones, which beautify the country throughout the year, both along the coastline and the meadows and mountains. It is full of large and small rivers, giving good drinking water, which flows down to the sea and are navigable and abound in tasteful fishes of all species. There is also an abundance of timber, which is cut down and taken to the sawmills, and many logs are floated down the rivers, which are mostly navigable. The timber is good for building houses and edifices, and for making large and small vessels. Many trees are straight and thick, fit for use as masts for galleys and galleons, both light and flexible, so that any vessels can be equipped single mast without need of dovetailing or cutting it into pieces. There is likewise an abundance of timber for hulls of vessels, for their nails, framework, top timber, and any photok timbers, breast hooks, knees and small knees, upper works, and good timber for decks and sides. It seems that because of the excessive construction of ships that later took place,
some species disappeared or at least became scarce. One of the being is the betis. There are many fruit trees in the land such as santol, mabolo, tamarind, nangka, or jackfruit, anonas, papayas, guava, and various kinds of oranges, both small and large, sweet and sour, citrus and lemons, about 10 or 12 varieties of bananas, very tasteful and wholesome, many kinds of coconuts with good taste, from which liquor and common oil is made very useful for once. Another wild palm trees of the mountain which yields no nuts, but however give good trunks, and from the husks of which oakum is obtained, useful for caulking vessels. Efforts have been made to raise olives and quince and other European fruits, but so far they have not succeeded excepting pomegranates and grapes, which yield excellent fruits after 2 years. Vegetables of all kinds thrive in abundance, but they do not seed well, and it is necessary to bring seeds from Castile, China, or Japan. In the province of Cagayan, there are chestnut trees that produce nuts, and in other places there are pine trees and other kinds of trees which produce large kernels and strong good tasting nuts, which are known by the name of piles. There is an abundance of cedar, which is called calanta, and also fine red timber called asana. Let's talk about meat. The meat usually eaten are pork, which is abundant, tasteful, and wholesome, beef, of which there is plenty in many parts of the islands, pale considerable breeding stations and ranches where cattle are raised. They originated in China and New Spain. There is also a large variety of chickens, like those of Castile and others still larger, the breed having been brought over from China, and they taste well and make good capons. Some of the hens are black in their feathers, skin, flesh, and bones, and they taste good. There are broods of geese, swans, ducks, and tame doves or squabs brought over from China. There is an abundance of wild game such as deer and wild boar, and in some places porcupine, buffaloes called carabaos, which are raised in the fields, and there are fierce carabaos, aside from the tame ones brought from China, of which there are a great number and very beautiful ones, only useful for dairy purposes, their milk being thicker and better tasting than cow's milk. Goats are also raised, although owing to the dampness of the land, their flesh does not taste good, and they easily get sick and die on this account. Also because they eat certain poisonous plants. Although sheep have been imported several times from New Spain, they have never multiplied, so that they are scarce in the land now that it seems that both the climate and pasture not appropriate for them. There were no horses, mares, or donkeys in the islands until the Spaniards had them brought over from China and from New Spain. There are donkeys and mules, but few in number, but a great number of horses and mares, and some ranches are full of them, and most of these have been raised here and are half breeds, and good specimens having fine colors and are well developed and very satisfactory for work, even if only middle size. Those brought from China are small, strong, and have a good pace, quite treacherous, restless, and not so well developed. There are brought from Japan some horses with good color, stout, heavy, and bristly, with large bones and feet, looking like dray horses with large heads, strong mouths, are poor runners but good pacers, lively and with good determination. And infinite numbers of small and large monkeys thrive and sometimes bend the branches of the tree throughout the islands. There are likewise green and white parakeets, but they are poor talkers. Also very small parrots bearing red and green colors called kulasisi, which also do not talk. The hills and settlements about in snakes of different colors, the ordinary ones being larger than those in Castile. Some boa constrictors have been seen in the mountains, which are strangely large and admirable in appearance. The most dangerous snakes are very thin and shorter, and they drop from the trees where they usually live on those who pass below and sting them. In the Tagus River or Rio Grande of Cagayan, in the proper season there is an abundance of booby fish, which come to in the shallow water in the bay to spawn. In the Bonbon Lake, many tiny fish not as large as those in Spain, although having the same shape, flesh and taste can be caught during the proper season. The seas are full of large fishes such as whales, sharks, and other unknown species having unusual size and shapes. In Lake of Bai, large freshwater lake having considerable fish in it. Batangas, another lake in the province of Bonbon, although it is not so large, it abounds with fish. The method of fishing used by the natives are very flexible, strong, thin, and solid, made into strong cables for their vessels and other purposes. There is an abundance of ginger, which is eaten raw, in vinegar or pickled. Likewise much kachumba, a plant giving both taste and color used in cooking in the place of saffron and spices. The regular delicacy offered throughout this island and in other countries in the Asian mainland is the boyo or betel, which is made out of a leaf of plant or vine resembling the mulberry leaf, coupled with a seed or nut from the areca palm, which is whitish inside. This nut, called bonga or bunga, is coupled is sliced into pieces and placed inside a rolled betel leaf with a bit of very wet quick lime. This rolled tidbit is placed in the mouth and chewed. It is strong and stimulating that later it induces sleep and intoxication. Its addicts get their mouth and saliva turn red like blood and obtain a taste which is not unpleasant. After it is chewed for some time, it is spit out of the mouth as a pa. Whatever juice may have entered the stomach is advantageous and tastes good to the user and certain ailments. It strengthens and fortifies the teeth and preserves the gums of any rheums, and many claim it to be a panacea with wonderful results for many illnesses. In Paracal in the province of Camarines, certain placer and other mines were developed and worked. Likewise, in Ilocos, this commodity which was also being traded because behind this province, which is on the sea coast, there are highlands which run and extend to Cagayan inland, where along the sources of the streams like many natives who have not been as yet pacified, called Igorots, whose country has not yet penetrated by outsiders. They have rich mines of gold besides silver. They take their unrefined and unperfected gold to certain appointed places where they meet the people from Ilocos for a trade. Their gold in exchange of rice, pigs, carabaos, blankets, and other articles which they need. The Ilocanos market the same throughout the plains and the country. They were suspicious that the Spaniards would not hesitate to go and get their mines for themselves. It was said that the Igorots felt that their gold was kept more securely in the ground than in their own homes or settlements, and in truth they were right. In the rest of the islands there is the same abundance of placer and other mines, particularly in Visayas, Butuan River in Mindanao, and Cebu, where presently mine called Talibon is being developed, which yields very good gold. If all the activities and efforts of the Spaniards were concentrated on the development of gold mining, there could be obtained from many of these islands as much gold as from any possessions in the world. However, they are giving more importance to other industries than to gold mining. They will be discussed in a proper place more extensively than the later. In the waters along the coast, these islands, there are to be gathered an ostia de perlas, or mother of pearl. Particularly in the Calamianes, some have been obtained which are quite large, fine, and very oriental. Neither is there any business of importance in this line, and throughout the country, everywhere there is often to be found inside the ordinary mother of pearl shells, imperfect pearls, and mother of pearls as large as warrior shields, out of which curious articles are made by hand. There are likewise sea turtles throughout the islands. Sea turtles so large that their shells are profited by the natives, who sell them as trade commodities to the Chinese, the Portuguese, and other nationals who come to buy them, and who esteem them very much, because they make many curries out of them. Along the coast of any of these islands, there are many shining shells or cowries called sigoi. Shining shells or cowries. The natives pick them and sell them by measure to the Chamise, Cambodian, Portuguese, and other nationals of the mainland. The said shells are used as currency with which they purchase things like they do in New Spain with cocoa beans. The horns of the carabaos constitute a commodity for China, also the skins of deer and redwood for Japan. China, horns of carabao, skins of deer in Japan, redwood. The natives profit by all this article in trading them with these nationals and derive much advantages thereby. In this island of Luzon, especially in the provinces of Manila, Pampanga, Pangasinan, and Ilocos, there are to be found ancient earthen tibores or jars, brown in color and not so to look at. Some are of middle size and others are smaller, bearing certain marks and seals, and they cannot explain where they got them from or in what period. At present, they are no longer obtainable, neither are they manufactured in these islands, and they are of great demand on the part of the Japanese, who prize them very much for the reason that they have discovered that these are the only receptacles in which to properly keep and preserve the roots and leaves of a plant called cha, or tea in English language, the beverage of which they drink hot and which the Japanese so highly esteem. A jar is worth a great deal of money, and is adorned outside with fine gold plating with much elaboration, and is covered with brocade cloth, so that there are vases which are worth or sold for 2,011 reals styles each or less. Once in a while, the natives find large chunks of ambergris along the coast, which they are already acquainted with, as they know that Spaniards esteem it very much. Ambergris is a solid wax inflammable substance of a dull gray or blackish color produced in the digestive system of sperm whales. They made it as a commodity for trading last year, 602. In the island of Cebu, the natives found a large piece of ambergris, and as the news of it spread and reached the ears of the encomendero or grant holder, he took it secretly for himself, charging it to tribute or taxes. It was said that it weighed a great number of pounds, and that it was sold by the owners at a high price. In the island of Mindanao, in the province and river of Butuan, which has been pacified and granted as encomienda to the Spaniards, the natives have another industry or trade which is quite profitable, inasmuch as there is abundance of wild or civet cats, although they are smaller than the genic civets. The natives get the musk or perfume out of the cats and sell or trade them, doing good and easy business thereby. Civet cat, a slender nocturnal carnivorous mammal with a bared and spotted coat, and well-developed anal scent glands native to Africa and Asia. During the crescent moon, the natives go out with nets to catch civets, a considerable number of which get caught. Once they have removed the mass out of them, they let them loose again. Likewise, they keep some of the civets, put them in cages, and sell them all over the country at modest prices. Cotton is also raised throughout the islands, and they spin it into thread and sell it by skins to the Chinese and other nationals who come over to trade it. They also weave blankets in various ways, which they also sell or trade. Likewise, clothes made out of the fiber of bananas, the cloth known as medrinake. The Babuyanes consist of many but small islands, and they lie on the head or point of Cagayan province, inhabited by natives whose principal trade is to come to Cagayan in tapake vessels carrying pigs, chickens, provisions, and ebony spears to sell. That's the end of my report. Thank you and God bless everyone.